Welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. Whenever there's a big event in society that captures all the news headlines and has everyone talking, I'm oftentimes going back to my very basic way of looking at things, which is question everything. So when I see the news headlines are a certain way, I'm asking myself, what do they want me to know? What do they not want me to know? Is there a different story they're distracting from? Is there a particular narrative we're pushing? What is the timing of this particular event? And so last night, there was a very significant event that happened near Washington, D.C. A passenger airline, American Airlines passenger plane, was hit midair by a military Black Hawk helicopter. And so I'll go ahead and pull up some information of just what we know right now, because there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of questions I have about this. So let's first look at what are the basic facts. So it was American Eagle Flight 5342 from Wichita, Kansas, carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members that collided midair with an Army helicopter right near the Reagan Washington National Airport last night. So President Donald Trump has confirmed today that there are no survivors in the collision. The 2 aircraft crashed into the Potomac River, where a rescue operation has become a major recovery effort, with dozens of bodies being pulled from the frigid waters so far. The Washington mayor, Muriel Bowser, said that the Black Hawk had 3 people in it. So the plane had figure skaters, coaches, family members who were at a camp in Wichita. There were Russian state media has confirmed that a Russian figure skaters were also on board and coaches were on board. We don't have the full detail of who was on the plane, and we have no details of who was supposedly on the Black Hawk helicopter. Now, looking at the location of where this happened, you can see the map, kind of center bottom is the exact collision spot. Just as this plane was coming in to land at the Reagan Airport, right over the river, the Potomac River, a helicopter hit it. So we have a video here that just shows the collision happening midair. So it's about 20 seconds, but you can see, I know it's hard to see, and I'll zoom in the next time around. You can see the helicopter coming straight towards the plane and hitting it right there. So let me zoom in a little further for you, and I'll play that again. So on the screen to the left, you can see a little dot, and that big center white light in the middle is the airline. And so you can see the little dot heading towards, basically straight towards the airplane, and they hit right there. And again, according to President Trump this morning, no survivors at all. Now, these things do happen. There are accidents that it's not uncommon that you occasionally have these accidents, whether it's human error, whether it's, as Trump talked about, all these DEI hiring policies where the FCC is looking to, or sorry, that they're basically they're looking to hire people with disabilities and all kinds of different things like that. Now, there's a lot of things, though, that don't add up to this, and I'm not drawing any specific conclusions. I don't know whether this was purely an accident or something more nefarious, but I'm certainly asking a lot of questions because there are a lot of pieces to this story that really make me scratch my head and say that doesn't really make sense. So one of the first things I'll pull up right here, this is a video. This was shared by Rob Du over on Twitter. This is a video that was leaked to somebody. It was a bigger account that put this out on Twitter. That was a video of the air traffic control monitor. So you'll see on here that CA stands for collision alarm. That on this monitor, you can see these 2 vehicles, the airplane, obviously, and the helicopter. I'll play it for you because there's no use in having the audio on there, but you can see as these. A little audio, I'll turn that off for you. But as they come close to each other, you'll see it says collision alert. It's flashing CACA. Now, Rob says the alarms are on the screen for 25 seconds before the impact. Someone was asleep at their air traffic control station. But if you listen to the audio, you can hear those voices. So obviously you don't hear snoring. but you can see that it's very obvious that these two, the plane and the helicopter, are headed straight for each other until right there is the impact. Now, thankfully, we live in a world where we have Twitter and we've got experts all over the place that are weighing in and giving us more information on this. And so I want to bring attention to this gentleman here, Colonel Towner Watkins. So Colonel Watkins is a retired U.S. Air Force colonel. He says he's exposing Operation Gladio and the international syndicate to the world, which, me too. Thank you. Anyways, this guy is a retired Air Force colonel. And so he has a long post on here that I'm going to read to you that walks through some of the information that I think is very suspicious about this. So he goes, here are the facts as we know them. Army Black Hawk from Davidson Field hits commuter American airline at D.C. Reagan National Airport. No survivors. The Black Hawk can be remotely controlled, and there may or may not have been 3 people on board. As I mentioned, the mayor of D.C. has come forth and said there were 3 people on board the Black Hawk. But as he's saying, I agree with him, is that they may or may not have been on board. Now, when he says that the Black Hawk can be remotely controlled, this was new information for me. It doesn't surprise me. Yet here I will show you on Lockheed Martin's own website. This is an article that just came out late last year. And it says, command an autonomous Black Hawk helicopter from 300 miles away. As it says, how do you command a Black Hawk helicopter perform a mission autonomously from 300 miles away? Quite simply, by using a tablet connected to the aircraft via data link. It says, during the Association of the U.S. Army's annual meeting in Washington, D.C., visitors and U.S. Army senior leaders saw how a Black Hawk helicopter integrated with Sikorsky's Matrix autonomy system can receive remote mission commands in real time, then carry out that mission on its own using its onboard autonomous systems without remote control or pilot inputs. It says the Matrix system is unique because it's not a simple flight director following a planned route. Instead, the system acts fully independently, reacting to the dynamic combat environment to avoid threats, optimize routing, and execute emergency procedures if necessary. And they've got a video here, showing this, but it's not really that important because it can be done. So this isn't some conspiracy theory that you can remote control a Black Hawk helicopter, which makes me think, okay, was this remote controlled, right? Anything that can be remote controlled. Now, again, I'm not some tech wizard, but I would imagine you could also hack those controls. That's just how things work. People can hack your car, so they can hack the wireless signal you send to unlock your car, and they can then steal your car. Someone can hack your TV remote. They can access your TV from a different way, and they can control your channels without you knowing. Even if they have the same remote in a different location, they can point towards your TV if they're close enough. And so the point being is that if something can be remotely controlled, though I'm assuming there's a lot of technology and safeguards to prevent these helicopters from being hacked and controlled by somebody else, it's certainly a question that I have is, was this helicopter being remotely controlled? And if so, by who? Was it some sort of terrorist attack? Was it our own agencies? I mean, just so happens that right now we have the confirmation hearings going on. Today we had Kash Patel, which is a significant threat to the existing deep state apparatus that controls a lot of our agencies and controls really a lot of our federal government and our state governments for that matter as well. So it's a reasonable question to ask, was this remotely controlled by somebody? Now, it also could have been someone that had a mission to accomplish this accident, this destruction of a passenger airline on purpose. And yeah, of course, there's kamikazes and people do this on purpose as well. So I'm not saying that it was only nefarious if it was remote controlled, because it could have been a single or 2 or 3 bad actors in there as well that were carrying out a mission. Like that's not new. It's happened all throughout history. So I'll go back to Colonel Towner Watkins. So he says, the Black Hawk can be remotely controlled, and there may or may not have been 3 people on board. The Black Hawk has 180-degree visibility sitting at the controls, but somehow doesn't see a relatively larger airliner with lights in a very well-lit area, even at night, while the tower does not warn Black Hawk to stay out of the flight path where he shouldn't be, but only asks if he sees the commuter airline. Now, he gives Colonel Watkins gives some very good background here as well from his experience. He said, the Black Hawk was reportedly from the Army's VIP fleet, which means the best of the best trained pilots assigned in very well-maintained aircraft. He says, I spent 6 months flying with an Army Black Hawk crew. They are warrant officers that only fly helicopters. They don't do staff tours or other things. They fly. They are the best of the best. He says, my pilots saw a tripwire across the Euphrates River at 90 miles an hour and maneuvered to avoid us all being decapitated, which was the purpose of the wire. So if these aircraft operators, these helicopter operators, can see a tripwire going 90 miles an hour across a river and maneuver to prevent that from hitting the helicopter, you would think that someone trained to fly a Black Hawk helicopter would also be able to see a large passenger airline right in front of them. So that's highly suspicious to me as to why this would have happened. Now, look, if this was, say, an amateur helicopter operator, say it was someone that had, was a hobbyist pilot and he had a helicopter and he was flying where he shouldn't be, which again, I would imagine that the airspace around an airport, especially an airport in DC, would be heavily restricted. So my guess is that if some random guy on his farm is driving his hobby helicopter and flying it in near the airport, there would have been massive commotion and it would not have been allowed to get to the place where this happened. Okay, so he continues. He said, we had a landing mishap in Zaco that their immediate reaction saved all on board. They don't fly into commercial airplanes on accident. He continues, aviation accounts on X show the Black Hawk flight path originating from just south of the CIA headquarters, Langley, there's another point of suspicion. So it originated from just south of the CIA headquarters and proceeding north along the west side of the Potomac all the way north until it reaches the south-facing and approaches to the airport, and it heads directly east into the flight path of the southbound landing American jet. Anyone flying in DC airspace when preparing their flight plan will know where all restricted airspaces are, and you wouldn't want to know, based on conditions, whether National was using north or southbound approaches for landing if you are flying within close proximity of National to avoid hitting civilian planes. So here's some questions he has, which I think are very good questions. Were there military Army pilots on board the Black Hawk? Don't assume so, because the CIA often borrows military stuff to do nefarious things with. Was the aircraft being remotely controlled? Very fair question. Why was an experienced military flight crew, if there was one on board, flying into landing patterns of one of the busiest civilian airports? Who was on board the American airline? Was someone sending a message? Did the aircraft have anti-avoidance equipment? Anyone who doubts airplane crashes are intelligence agencies' murder tactics needs to research Operation Gladio and the death of Enrico Mattei, which I won't get into in this show. So we talked about that, but I want to look at this. So this, again, adds a lot more confusion, and this adds a lot more questions to the overall scenario. So this is a post that Jane Ruby put out, and she says, was this Black Hawk on a mission? 3 near hits on the other aircraft until it got to that particular AA flight. So I'm going to play this for you from the beginning. So the orange plane, or the orange plane icon on the screen, is the Black Hawk helicopter. And you can see where the transponder originated from. You can see that line begins, which I'll be covering that in the next iteration of this video. So if you trace the path, to me, it looks like this helicopter was trying to run into planes, and it almost hit 3 separate planes before hitting the final plane. So let's look at it's 46 seconds long. I might play it twice just to see this. Okay, so you can see there, right there. Okay, there's the first near crash. Let's talk about how to make America healthy again. Let's talk about Vinetastic. Whenever I work with a new show sponsor, I always make sure that anything I recommend to you is something I'd also give my own family. And when I heard about Vinetastic, I was intrigued. So I got a few boxes of their drinks. And honestly, I was really surprised how amazing these drinks are and how healthy they are. And trust me, I'm really picky about what I consume and especially about what my kids and my wife consume. So, Vinetastic marries the benefits of the mighty muscadine grape's liquid extract and the hydration and refreshment of LeBlue's fractional vapor compression distilled bottled water. Vinetastic is made with no sugars, no carbs, no artificial sweeteners, and no calories. And it's got the benefits of approximately 100 parts per million of antioxidant polyphenols, all from the muscadine grape. So, Vinetastic is a game changer for anyone looking to get off artificial or sugary drinks that don't support optimal health. So, if you or someone you know is health conscious, calorie conscious, sugar conscious, pre diabetic, diabetic, or just enjoys a delicious alternative to artificial sugary drinks, try the new Vinetastic. Honestly, it's fantastic. It comes in two flavors: blueberry cherry pomegranate and pineapple mango. Actually, I think I'll have one right now. Mm. It's honestly really, really good. So, folks, it's available at vinetastic.com with free shipping. Yes, that's vinetastic.com. So, folks, order today and use the code SETH, that's SETH, to receive 5% off your order. So, vinetastic.com for your health, for your body, for your life. This helicopter flew very close to the flight path of an airline. Now it continues. It's going down the river. It's going down the river. Okay, there we go. There is another airplane that it almost hits again. There's a near miss right there where it almost hits an additional airline. It continues and it continues going down, zigzagging. Now look at this. She says it makes an erratic move towards the third plane. So watch this move right here. Okay, you see right here, there's this current location. The helicopter is not close to hitting this airline, but watch what happens. The helicopter then, look at that, okay? Look at that flight motion right there. The helicopter looked like it juked over to try to get in the way of that airline. Okay, I'll play it one more time for you. Watch this. The helicopter, it looks like it actually jerks over almost as if it was trying to hit that other airline. And so it continues. And it continues going down as you see it's heading towards the airport. You see on those gray planes, I'm guessing those are landed planes there. So it's heading now towards the airport. Okay, it's going up and above. Now it scoops back in. So it looks like it's going further away. Now it comes back in towards the airport again. And you can see right now it's zigging and zagging until right there. It hits the other plane. And that's the plane that ended up being the catastrophe that we know has taken at least the lives of 64 individuals. So again, I'm gonna play it one more time because this, to me, this is of everything that I've seen, this is the most damning evidence. If I was someone, say I was an Air Force colonel or Pete Hegseth, and I was reviewing this data, I would be asking so many questions. Why is this helicopter driving or flying into the path of four different planes, and the fourth plane is the plane that actually gets hit and causes this? Which also makes me think that perhaps it wasn't necessarily that the intention was to kill a particular individual or particular group on the fourth airline, but maybe they were just trying to cause an accident. They were trying just to take on these planes because let's just say that we found out that there was some, high level Russian military official on the plane that went down. If that was the case, and look, we know that the CIA has done these things a lot, where they've brought down airlines and to kill certain people, they've blown up airlines. You look at a lot of world leaders, they have died in airplane crashes. I mean, the airplane crash is one of the most convenient ways to take somebody out because it's so hard to prove afterwards. It's just like, oh, was it an accident? Like, so John Denver, oh, what happened to John Denver or Kobe Bryant or, the president of Ecuador, the president of Panama, right? There's been all these instances where these plane crashes and everyone just says, oh, it must have been a malfunction. And there you go. So again, I'll play this again. But to me, again, if I was Pete Hegseth, I'd be looking at this saying, there is something really, really wrong about the flight of this helicopter. This does not look like a skilled helicopter pilot. To me, this looks like someone who is on a kamikaze mission with the goal being to crash into an airline midair and cause a mass death event. So here we go, watch. Again, flying, barely misses the first plane. Keeps going though, right? Not happy with that. Hey, we missed the first one. Going for the second one. Just misses the second one again. Going further. Oh, here's a third chance. Oh, we're not gonna hit it. Zigzags back. Again, look at that. Look at this flight behavior. That does not look like a normal. They made almost a complete 180-degree, or actually even more. They made a complete kind of zigzag to go back into the path of that airliner. That does not make sense to me. And as it continues here, you see continuing and continuing. Now it's heading straight into the most dense airspace right by the airport, kind of going around and coming back in before it comes down and goes directly into the path of the American airline AA5342, and there is your collision. So this to me is a smoking gun if I've ever seen one, that something is amiss. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the intentions were, but this is highly, highly suspicious. Now, there's a gentleman on Twitter. His handle is Into Thin Air. If you're not following him, I suggest you do. He does very good videos. A lot of what he covers is engineering, weather modification. He's excellent at analyzing maps and weather maps and showing weather patterns. He's showing radar, similar to the information that if you follow Dane Wigington over at the Geoengineering Watch, he's showing oftentimes how, like if I was following him during the different storms late last year down in North Carolina, or Hurricane Milton, and his research is brilliant. So this is what's interesting though, is that he does some research into this exact flight path and the origination of it. So he says here, breaking wild new info, American Airlines and Black Hawk midair collision. He says, tell me your thoughts below. The transponder seemingly turned on over a specific area, which Google Earth has now blurred out. No joke, something very fishy is going on here and way more than meets the eye. So I'm going to play the first couple minutes of this video that he made here, which is a very, very helpful video that, again, if the flight path already wasn't enough for you to say, hey, something is not right here, what he's going to show you here makes me even more suspicious. So I'll go ahead and full screen this though, so you can see it larger. So I'll play it. It'll be about 2 or 3 minutes, but this is really, really good information that, again, raises a lot more questions for me. So check this out.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm sure you have heard about the Black Hawk and the American Airlines jet that crashed. I found some very weird information tying back to the Black Hawk, which is what you're seeing right here. Here's the squawk number 0125. This was labeled as PAT25, which usually means someone important was on the helicopter. The media is saying different. Take that with a grain of salt. Anyway, this is exactly the point where the transponder of the Black Hawk turned on. So we are able to follow it from the second it turns on here. Here's part of its path. It kind of comes down this river, zigzags, and then eventually, as I'm sure many of you saw, it collides with that airplane right about here. But what's important here, and I want you to focus on this, is exactly where this transponder turned on, because this area is very significant, and I'm going to show you why right now. So the first thing I did, obviously, was go to Google Earth, and I found this exact area. And here it is right here. Here's Lawton Street. You can go back. This is also Lawton Street, and this is part of Lawton Street as well. Now look exactly where this thing turns on. Right here in between this home and this home. Now I'm gonna go right to this spot closest to the street, right here. Here we go. Switch over to Google Earth, we'll zoom down, and this house is right here. The transponder turned on right here above these trees, and here is the kicker, my friends. When you go on Google Earth, usually you see most of the houses on Street View. The only house blurred out is this one. Right here, take a look at this. We're going to turn around this way, gone. You cannot see this house from any angle on Google Earth. Now, this is something you can call Google Earth and request if you have issues, privacy concerns. You can have this done. But I mean, come on, what are the chances of this? This is exactly where that helicopter transponder turned on, and the only spot we can start following the chopper. So let's exit out of here. Once again, here is that house with the white driveway. This is the house that's blurred out. The transponder turned on right here over these trees. Now, I'm still trying to figure out what to make of this, but I went to Grok, and it's pretty interesting what Grok responded. All right, here we go. If the flight data indicates that the Black Hawk's helicopter transponder went on directly over 6907 Lawton Street, McLean, Virginia, and this is the only house blurred out in that area, several points can be considered. Obviously, coincidence or connection. The coincidence of the transponder activating directly over a blurred house could be significant, but without specific details or official reports linking the two events will remain speculative. Obviously, it's going to remain that way. They are saying this was a training exercise. I still believe there is way more to this. Now, just take a look at this one real quick. It says flight data and timing. If the transponder data aligns with the moment of the crash or shortly before, this could be a key piece of information for investigators. However, the activation of a transponder over a particular point doesn't inherently imply a direct cause or effect with the crash unless further evidence supports this. Now, obviously, I do believe that as well. This could be a total coincidence, but I just find it very, very weird how the one house blurred out in this entire freaking town is the one house this transponder turned on over. And now if we can catch some of this flight, let's go ahead and look at it. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, but here we go. And there's the crash there. So this thing was zigzagging all over the place. And there were some instances where this helicopter was almost going towards other airplanes before it finally made contact with the American Airlines jet. And this is the last frame we have where they make contact and fall into the river. I don't know, everybody. This is just very strange. And also, I broke this yesterday that the Doomsday plane left Omaha right after the crash and flew directly to Washington, D.C. This plane is only used for like very specific things, very high military stuff, transporting important people like the president, which then in that case would be called Air Force One. But this thing literally beelined from Omaha, Nebraska, all the way to the site of the crash, looped around and then landed at Joint Base Andrews. Here's another shot of it. This is when it came in towards Washington, looped around the area of the crash, and then it's going to circle and go right to Andrews right here. Now, for those of you that know what this plane is for, you already know that this is super rare. I talked to multiple members of the military, active and retired, who said that this is a key part of this story. They didn't say why or what, but they said if this thing's in the area after a crash like that, something very important happened that we probably don't know about. All right, my friends, I wanted to try to keep this short so we could digest this information in shorter videos. I'll have much more info out throughout the day. Check out the X, Instagram, and TikTok channels, as well as YouTube, obviously, because as always, I can talk about certain things on certain sites and other things on others. All right, everyone, prayers to all involved. Please leave your thoughts down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
That was Into Thin Air, which I highly recommend you give him a follow. He does very, very good research, but again, more aspects of this story are very, very suspicious. Now, I know that the Doomsday plane, as he called it, is also, I think, from what my research has shown me, is that it's also a plane they use for nuclear sniffing. So if there is a suspected terrorist attack or something, and maybe that's the story, is that this happened and they thought, okay, this is suspicious, we're going to go out and check it out. That could have been it. It could have been as simple as that. However, as he mentioned in the very end of the video, and he showed that particular flight path, and he said that he talked to current and retired military folks and contacts that he had, they said this is a key part of the story. So again, you take a step back, Trump has come out and he's blaming this on DEI policies. Now, of course, DEI policies have caused a lot of issues and a lot of plane crashes and all kinds of terrible things in our country, which we can see. It's like, yes, if your policy is to try to hire someone that's mentally retarded, pardon if I'm offending anybody with that, but someone that is subpar in their intelligence to perform a complex task, you can expect that maybe there might be more problems than if a normal, intelligent person is doing that task. But I have so many questions about this, but also looking at the timing, right? So again, this was the day before Kash Patel's hearing. Where he's going through his confirmation hearing. The day before that, this is within the first 2 weeks of Trump being president. Now, of course, we saw all kinds of things like this happening under Biden, so it's not that this stuff didn't happen and all of a sudden it's happening under Trump. But again, it makes me ask a lot of questions. But I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? What is the research that you've done? Do you see a different angle to the story? You probably do, because you're really, really smart, and I love reading the comments that you have. So that's it for the analysis of this. I now have an interview for you. Now doesn't relate to the plane crash because this is more of a breaking story I was doing, but there's another very important breaking story as it relates to the global banking system. So if you've been following my show, you know that I cover a lot of big picture geopolitics, a lot of the health freedom information, but also a lot about what's happening with fiat currencies, the global economy, and the scare of the massive debt bubble that our country has, $35 trillion plus debt bubble, and what's going on with the future, and also what's going to happen with Trump getting in here. So I have a very special interview with my good friend Colin Plume about some breaking news as it relates to gold. So to give you just a really quick overview of what's going on, for one, today gold hit a record high. So gold it's over 2,800 an ounce at the time of recording this. And so gold hit a record high today, but something happened today in the last 24 hours or so, we're over at the Bank of England, where supposedly a massive gold depository. What's happening is that a lot of people were taking their gold out of the depositories and sending them over to the United States. Now, there's speculation because it's out of a fear of tariffs. So let's just say that I'm some very wealthy family, and I've got $10 million worth of gold sitting over in a depository in England. And I'm concerned that Trump is going to start putting tariffs onto bringing precious metals in the United States. I would take that gold out and I would move it to a bank in the United States. That way, when the tariffs hit, I'm safe. What's happened though is that there's been a flight of gold, almost a gold run, similar to a bank run, but almost a gold run where so many people have been pulling their gold out of the Bank of England and sending it to the United States that the Bank of England is now telling people that if you want to pull your gold out of our depositories, instead of your typical 2 or 3 days, it's 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks. So imagine you're someone sitting there and you've got millions of dollars in gold sitting with the Bank of England, and you have a piece of paper that says you own this gold, and all of a sudden they're telling you, oh, sorry, you can't get your gold for another 2 months. This raises all kinds of red flags. But to me, the most important thing that's so significant about this is that I believe that, and not just I believe, my research has shown me that the elites and the banking families have been manipulating the prices of precious metals, gold and silver, through paper contracts. Basically, let's just say that this piece of pencil is an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver. So let's just say that I'm keeping this single ounce of silver in my vault, and you're depositing you're giving me your silver, or you're buying a piece of paper saying you own this piece of silver. But what they've done is they have sold this same piece of silver to 100 different people with silver contracts. And so it's been a way that what they've done is they have really messed with the overall supply and demand for precious metals, and it allows them to artificially inflate the supply of precious metals sometimes up to 100 times. And so think about that in a supply and demand market. What happens if you create an artificial abundance of a product? Well, the price gets driven down because everyone thinks there's so much of it. And so what could be happening right now is the breaking of that system, right? The illusion that the elites have been using to suppress the prices of precious metals could be breaking right now, because people are now realizing that even though they have a piece of paper saying they own this ounce of gold, this ounce of silver, when they go to get it, it's like, well, it's going to take like 4 to 8 weeks to get it for you. And everyone's thinking, wait, do you actually have that? Or does someone else have that same piece of paper and they want the same piece of metal there? So this could be a very, very significant story. And the fact that gold hit a record high today and silver is up today leads me to believe that this might just be the beginning of the end for these, banking elite families' ability to manipulate the precious metals prices, which again helps them to, control the fiat currency and really ultimately helps them to enslave us further. So folks, please enjoy this interview next with Colin Plume. It's only about a 30-minute interview or so it really gets straight to the point, because again, this is a very significant story for us to pay attention to. Enjoy the interview. So we're going on almost 10 days of having Trump in office, and we have seen massive changes across the country and around the world. And one of the big topics I've been following closely to try to understand how his presidency is going to change is the global economic situation, right? The United States is sitting in $35+ trillion in debt. And Trump has talked openly now multiple times, even addressing Congress, about getting rid of income tax, which I would be the first person to say, great idea, but replacing that income with tariffs. Now, for me, living in America, the idea of tariffs seems like a good idea. I know certain goods will become more expensive, but I'm very, very American first. And I like the idea of making the foreign corporations in foreign countries pay to play. But we're starting to see ripples on what these tariffs could actually do internationally. And we have seen a breaking story in the past couple of hours about how it's affecting the gold exchanges and the flow of precious metals into America, as people are concerned that if they don't get their precious metals into America before these tariffs hit, that they're going to see the price of these metals skyrocket because of that. And so joining us is my good friend Colin Plume to help us break down the story. So Colin, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. We just were on the last week, I think, and already some
Yeah.
big news is happening. So thanks for being here.
Yeah. Well, I think anytime you see a news report saying that the Bank of England is doesn't have, they're basically short on gold, and they've told investors that they have to wait 4 to 8 weeks to get their gold. It's something that it raises an eyebrow. I think, and I don't know if the tariff idea is really what's pushing this idea. I think it's part of the story potentially, but I don't know. I mean, have we discussed doing tariffs with the UK? I haven't seen any tariffs with the UK. Have you?
No, I haven't. But if you look at what happened with Colombia and how quickly, Trump just pulled out that massive tariff club and started swinging it at any country that was going up against what he wanted to have happen, maybe the folks in UK are thinking, well, we better get ahead of this. And let me go ahead and pull up
Yeah.
the article that we can just, I'll do a quick read through some of the highlights, and I really want to get your thoughts on this. So this is just today, Financial Times: gold stockpiling in New York leads to London shortage. It says, wait to withdraw bullion from Bank of England rises sharply as fears of Trump's tariffs drive shipments to the United States. And it says, a surge in gold shipments to the U.S. has led to a shortage of bullion in London as traders amassed an $82 billion stockpile in New York over fears of Trump administration tariffs. It says the wait to withdraw bullion stored in the Bank of England's vaults has risen from a few days to between 4 and 8 weeks, according to people familiar with the process, and as the central banks struggle to keep up with demand. Here's a quote. It says, people can't get their hands on gold because so much has been shipped to New York and the rest is stuck in the queue, said one industry executive. Liquidity in the London market has been diminished. Now, it says that since November's U.S. election, gold traders and financial institutions have moved 393 metric tons into the vaults of the COMEX Commodity Exchange in New York, driving its inventory levels up nearly 75% to 926 tons, the highest level since August 2022. Now, it says that total gold flows into the U.S. could be far higher than the COMEX numbers reflect, according to market participants, because there are likely to have been additional shipments to private vaults in New York owned by HSBC and JP Morgan. Those two banks declined to comment. So, Colin, as the CEO of Noble Gold, you're obviously following these stories and you understand a lot about the precious metals market. So, what do you see happening here? And I think the important question that I'm wondering, as someone that is invested into precious metals, is how do you think this is going to play out in terms of the prices of gold and silver this year?
Yeah. So again, I still am confused in the idea that there's tariffs because it's never been discussed with UK. But the most interesting thing of that whole article to me is the idea of it being stuck in the queue. I don't understand. How is it stuck? When you buy these contracts of gold, the gold is supposed to be there. There's no queue. You're not waiting on the gold. That's the thing that we've talked about a lot over the years, is there gold backing up every contract? And what they're alluding to is that there's not, that they're waiting. They have to wait, which means they don't have the gold. They have to accumulate the gold from somewhere. How can that be? COMEX and they're supposed to do audits. There's in London, New York, there's audits. So why would there be any weight of gold? Right now, I could get gold to somebody in 5 days. I'm a lonely gold dealer here in the US, right? I mean, I'm no Bank of England, but I can tell you this, we're shipping gold. It's getting there very quickly. The concerning thing is are these institutions actually holding enough gold? That's what that means to me. And why aren't these contracts backed up by the real metal? That's concerning to me.
And so one thing I also wonder as well is because I've done a lot of kind of digging into how they've been able to suppress the prices of precious metals. And one idea that I've come to over and over again through my research is that they're basically using these contracts to create an artificial supply that's much larger than the actual supply, right? So
Correct.
that I've heard sometimes it's even 100 to 1, right? So for every 1 ounce of silver, they've got 100 contracts out for 100 ounces,
Yeah.
which it seems like it's some sort of Ponzi scheme. And if the banks are the ones that are inflating and selling these contracts, then I feel like that what it's doing is it's messing with the natural laws of supply and demand. Because
Correct.
if a lot of investors around the world think, oh, well, I've got a silver certificate, say I own 1,000 ounces of silver on paper, but if 100 other people also own that same 1,000 ounces on paper, it's the same thing as the banking industry. And what causes bank
Hmm.
collapses is that
Hmm.
everyone says, "Oh, my bank account says I have $100,000," but with
Right.
the amounts, the minimum, requirements the banks have, you might be one of
Right.
1,000 people that all claim the same $100,000, right?
Yeah, the fractional reserve currency, the way that banks hold, maybe a tenth of what they have in savings. I think I mean, this is in essence like a bank run. That's in essence what happened is that people said, I don't feel comfortable. I want it closer. I want to actually get the gold. And then there were so many people saying, I want to get the gold that they couldn't keep up. They didn't have enough gold. And so, this is when people always ask me, how do you buy gold? How do you do it? And that's why a lot of people just won't mess around with any kind of contracted gold or any kind of ETF because they're concerned about this exact situation. And I think it also shows that people are concerned about where the price could go, and they want to get their hands on gold because they're anticipating prices to go up. Tariffs are one part of the conversation. I mean, there's been conversations about how that would affect other precious metals, silver too. Silver imports into the U.S. So there's a lot of this talk about how these things would affect us, and February 1st is right around the corner. So I think people are wanting to put themselves in the best position to get any assets before there could be any kind of spike. And that's what I saw when I saw this report. I mean, this news report splashed all over the news, all over Great Britain, all over in New York. Starting to make its way around the country now. But I think as more people see this happening, they're going to realize, like, wow, this is a shortage. And I won't be surprised if we see other areas start to have a similar thing, because people, once they realize that there's not the gold that they purchased there, they're going to also question and go, you know what, I want to call that contract in. I want to get some of my gold too. Um, and a lot of people have been talking. I don't know if you know this, but there's this mystery Asian buyer that they've been talking about on the gold market. There's these very wealthy Asian families that have been just gobbling up tremendous amounts of gold over the last 90 days. They call it the mystery Asian buyer because it's not one person. It's usually a conglomerate of very wealthy people that are doing this. And they believe that's part of the reason that the prices continue to kind of push up. So it's, I think the gold market is telling us something with this shortage, that people want to get it. There is some movement here. There's something happening behind the scenes that are making people cautious. And I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to have their gold. That's why you buy it. And now, I'm sure those people waiting on those 8 weeks are not going to be happy until they get the gold in their hands.
Especially if they believe that that gold that they own was sitting in a vault with their name on it. And now
Sure.
they discover it's almost like sometimes, if you go to the bank these days and say for me, if I had to pay a contractor and I need to go get $5,000 cash to, pay a handful of contractors for some work on my house. And the bank
Right.
is asking, well, what's this money for? And what's your profession? And sometimes I'll joke. I'm like, I'm a mercenary. And I'm like, I'm just kidding. And, and they'll laugh with me. I have fun with it. But it's the same thing. It's like, well, hold on. Isn't this my money that's sitting in the account?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Why?
you mentioned bank runs, and that's what comes to mind with this is because as we know about our banking system here in America, that it's almost a normalcy bias that keeps our banking system healthy. It's the belief that everyone
Mhm.
thinks, oh, well, my money's safe in the bank and it's insured by the FDIC. But when you look and you realize that the FDIC can only insure, 1% of the overall deposits that it's
Right.
supposed to be
Right.
insuring, if
Yeah.
enough people see through that, they're going to lose trust. And so I'm thinking the same thing that you are is, is this the beginning of I wouldn't say necessarily collapse of a certain system, but the breaking of the illusion that they've been using to oversell precious metals to keep the prices down. I mean, what do you
Mhm.
think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a logical conclusion, and I think the thing that I didn't see is why isn't anyone questioning the practices of these depositories? Why isn't anyone saying where is the gold? Why isn't it being audited? Where's the oversight here? Because COMEX, this is the biggest exchange where everybody LBMA. This is where all the gold and silver. This is where central banks are going. This is where they're bartering from. I mean, there should be better oversight. This isn't a small amount of gold. What is it, $82 billion in gold? This is a tremendous amount of gold that they don't know where it is and they don't know when they're going to be able to get it shipped out. So I think that, if we were in a COVID time, people might say, oh, maybe they're waiting on delivery or maybe this and that. We can't say that today. There's nothing like that. There's no world crisis like that that's happened today. So there's really no excuse for them not to have this gold. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of it and discovery. But it's just the first little inkling that there's a problem that they may not have all the gold they say they have, and I'd be interested to see if they're going to do more audits. And if it turns out they don't have all the gold, that it's not all reported, that they're waiting on it, and it's fractional, then you're right. Then the price is suppressed, and then the price should be much higher than where it is today. And that will be telling to see. But at the end of the day, I mean, in an inflationary environment like we're in right now, gold is going to do well, and that's why you're seeing kind of this pandemonium now, where they're just like they really want to get their hands on their gold. They want to feel safe. They want to know it's secure, and I can't blame them for that.
And so it's none of us have a crystal ball, but if gold, and we can say gold and silver, because I'm kind of personally I've got both gold and silver. Actually, I'm more heavily
Yeah.
into silver than gold because of the ratios, and I think that the ratios alone tell me silver should be much higher, right? Actually,
Right.
like, it's supposed to be
Right.
what closer to a 20-to-1 ratio, whereas right now it's what 90-to-1
It's
or 80-to-1.
91 to 1. Yeah, right now. Yeah. Yeah. The 100-year average is 50 to 1, which actually I go over in my book, Silver is the New Oil. I talk about all these things. But yeah, I mean, even if it went back to, it was 30 to 1 in 2011. So that would be where gold is today, where silver is today. Silver would go to, 120, $130. So that'd be a pretty massive gain from where it is today. So, yeah, I agree with you. I like silver. I think the price has been suppressed in silver also. But we'll see. Maybe there's going to be some runs on silver too, because COMEX, they also hold silver. Um, I know they hold, 1,000-ounce silver bars. And so we'll see if people are going to start wanting to have those and know where they are and have some physical delivery of that too. They just talked about the gold, but that could just kind of be the start of this here. So it is, there's a lot of movement here, but ultimately I think the idea is people wanted to protect themselves from a potential tariff. And by doing so, realized the gold that they thought they bought it may not be there. And it created more of a hysteria. And we'll see what happens over the next few days if they're able to make it better. I mean, after they said 4 to 8 weeks, there was no comment after that. That was it. There was nothing else. They didn't want to make any other comments, which if I'm an investor there, that doesn't make me feel good that they don't want to comment even farther than that. I mean, any logical person would say like, I should get more than a no comment when you supposedly have my metals that is supposed to be delivered in 3 days. And now you're telling me 4 to 8 weeks. So there's more to this story.
There is. So mentioning the crystal ball, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but you have obviously studied this extensively and you go over a lot of it in your book.
Yeah.
If there was the more of a run on these metals, and if the illusion and the price controls that they've been using through overselling, and overinflating the supply through the paper contracts, if that fell apart and everyone actually just demanded to have the metals that they had on paper, What do you
Yeah.
think? What could the price of these metals go to? Because I know last year some
Well,
of the bigger banks were saying gold could be 3 to 5 thousand an ounce potentially.
yeah.
What do
Yep.
you see as a potential for this?
Yeah. Well, I think with silver, if I just look at what happened during COVID, because that is sort of what happened during COVID, is that people couldn't get silver, right? Because most of the silver in the world is mined in Mexico, and their mines shut down for many, many months. And once people realized they couldn't get it and it was unavailable, the price went from, 12, $13 and went in 6 months. It went from 12, 13 all the way up to $30 an ounce. It was a massive run because people, the idea that they couldn't get it, it just creates this, coupled with the fact the government was just printing money. I mean, it was just the kind of the perfect storm for metals. So I think at minimum, you'd see that kind of hysteria where it would double. But if it's really true that they don't have all the silver and that these contracts have been in place and they've just been, manipulating the market and they haven't been telling us that, who knows I mean, the sky's the limit on both gold and silver. If those things were to happen, I mean, it would basically say that every person that's bought it at the current price bought, uh, uh, bought gold that they thought was relatively rare, but it actually was even more rare. It'd be like, buying buying like a regular Porsche and then finding out that it's actually one in 1,000, right? Or one in, maybe it's the only one that they've ever made. You'd be sitting on an antique, right? Sitting on something that's much more valuable. So I think if you had that value underneath you and knowing that there's a lot less gold in the world available, there's a lot less silver in the world that's available, the price would just, it would be quite unbelievable. And we'd go back to how we were working during COVID. We were working 7 days a week during COVID. We'd be going back to that scenario, which, we'd be happy to do.
It also makes me wonder because looking at what just happened with DeepSeek and look at the big tech stocks, but also looking at how much money was pulled out of the crypto market. I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering if there's a lot of people that not just crypto, but even that were just investing in like the Magnificent Seven and the big tech stocks. If that, with that shakeup that happened, it's also interesting that you mentioned that there's these big Asian buyers, which, I look at what happened with DeepSeek and in that they just released a new Alibaba AI. I think it's called Quinn, I think it is, which makes me think, is this economic warfare by China to collapse some of these tech stocks, which really represents the massive bubble of our stock market? And I'm wondering if these families know what's coming. And so these
Mm-hmm.
wealthy Asian families that are probably tied into the CCP or some of the larger leading organizations of the BRICS, et cetera, if they know something is coming, so they're, while everyone else is, have been rushing to buy, crypto and the stock
Yeah.
market, they see what's coming and they're quietly moving all of their assets into precious metals.
Yeah. It definitely, it's a big, I believe in that too. And I think that, listen, if you look at, it's always hard to know what markets are going to do, but I think DeepSeek and what happened on Monday and the fact that the we're riding so much on this AI tech that so much of the stock market is built on that, and that they could build it for a fraction of the price. They've been telling, ChatGPT and Nvidia said you need billions and billions of dollars in chips, and you need these computers, and you need all this, and it's going to cost $6 billion. And this company does it for $6 million, right? I mean, that's going to continue to send some shockwaves through the market. And the majority of the wealth, as you said, 35% of the wealth there is those Magnificent Seven companies, and really their big push is AI in one form or another. That's the real, potential growth story that they're telling us, that will continue to push things even higher. But if the cost that we're paying in the US is too high, and they can do it for a fraction of the price, and the competition is going to come from all over the world, then what are those Magnificent Seven really? What are they really going to do? And how are they going to compete at some of the prices that these other countries can build these products at? And that's going to be a telling story here. And listen, it's so heavily weighted in the seven companies, and the volatility index is very high. It's concerning. And then Powell, obviously, like, being cautious in terms of the Fed and saying he's not going to lower rates. So there's some things happening. This, I think, was the most interesting week in news in terms of economics that we've had in a long time. I mean, so many different variables came to the forefront. And I think the thing that, reminds me is that at the end of the day, you're buying different assets to protect yourself. You're buying uncorrelated assets. And so the gold and silver is the safety play, right? And that if things do go a little haywire and things aren't as strong as they are, is that you have something that you own that has no debt behind it, that you own, and that has performed well for thousands of years. And that's really the thing that I always think about, is that you're never going to pick it always perfect. You got to move and shift as you see opportunities. And I think that we're in an opportunity cycle. I think I 100% agree with you. Silver is the opportunity right now. I love where the price is. So I'm really, really hedging my bet and buying a lot there. I'm excited about it. So, but yeah, from DeepSeek to this gold, shocking gold story, there's definitely some movement behind the scenes where people are getting out of some of the traditional stuff, and they're hedging their bet basically, and they're going to flow to safety.
And that's really my perspective too, is that, I look at precious metals not as a get rich quick. Of course, look, I would love if silver hit 75 bucks an ounce. I'd be like, "Oh, okay, great. I'll pay off my car and I'll do something else." And it'd be amazing. But that's not why I've put,
Yeah.
basically any extra money I have then towards investments goes into precious metals, because for me, it's the same reason why I've got a huge storage of food, of storable food, and why I own land, because I think that we're entering into a time period of massive instability, and the only thing that I feel safe with, even safer than having cash in my hand, is precious metals. And to me, it's an insurance policy that if things go sideways, I'm not going to wake up one day and see that my stock portfolio has gone from, $500,000 to $50,000 overnight. And I know that, like,
Right.
that's to me what precious metals represent, is it's security. It's an insurance
Yeah.
policy. It's something that, hey, you know what? I can pass this on to my children one day, and it's going to
Yeah.
set them up, and it's going to give them security.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned and you started talking about your family, and I think fundamentally the thing that always draws people to precious metals and these types of safety investments is family. I mean, that's really why we do all of these things, is you do want to put your family in the best possible position. And when we talk to people about precious metals and why they're doing it, a lot of it is not even for them. It's for their kids, it's for their spouse. And so I think that's the layer too, is that when you take the ego out of it and investing in business and all this, and you really just fundamentally realize that you're doing this to provide the best life for your family, then it makes things it makes a lot of the decisions much, much easier. Um, and that's what people have told me for this, 16 years I've been doing this, is like, I made this decision for my family. And I think that's the best way to make any of these decisions. Listen, there's speculative stuff, there's speculative investments, and you're going to take a flyer on something and you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but it's at some point you got to make some kind of safety smart decisions for your family. And I think that's why a lot of people right now are starting to see what's happening and realize, hey, this could be a good time to just take some chips off the table, get into something safe, and just prepare myself for anything that can happen.
And Colin, I couldn't agree more. And I'm practicing what I'm preaching. This is my exact philosophy. So if folks want to reach out to your company, Noble Gold, which you've got my full trust. I've done a lot of business with you. I know you on a very personal level. We've got a website set up. So goldwithseth.com. It brings them here. You've got this the gold and silver investment guide. They can enter in their contact information here. And also your phone number we've got is 626-654-1906. So Colin, walk us through, if someone calls this phone number or if they fill out that form, say they've got an IRA or say they've just got a cash account, they want to move into precious metals. Is it complicated? What's that process look like?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, the first thing is we get to know you. The person that you're on the phone with, they're going to be your person. And we work as teams, but we typically be one person as you build a relationship. So the idea is you get to know them, they get to know you, they learn about you and your family and kind of what you're thinking. What's the idea? Are we doing an IRA? Are we doing cash? And they're going to walk you through that whole process. But no, we've done, thousands and thousands of transactions. We've shipped over $1.2 billion in gold and silver. We've done over $2 billion in precious metal sales. We make it very easy, whether it's an IRA, the paperwork's easy. We do all the paperwork for you, or if it's just, you know, cash direct investment, we do that. We ship it to you, or if you want, we can store it. Yeah, we handhold. It's a very white glove experience, and we've done it in a very specific way. So we focus on less investors, but we build relationships with those investors, and they get great service, and that's what they're going to feel. And everybody that you're going to talk to owns precious metals, knows precious metals, loves precious metals. This is what they do all day. So you're not, you know, you're focused on somebody that really understands this, and they're going to go through all the details, explain the products, spend a lot of time with you, and then, you know, ultimately let you make a decision if it's right for you and your family.
Oh, sounds perfect. So I'll bring up the website one more time, goldwithseth.com. Phone number 626-654-1906. That information will also be in the description for today's show. And honestly, you know, my advice to, you know, the viewer, also to my family, whoever it is that, right, it's almost like right now you have the opportunity to buy toilet paper before there's the lines at Costco for toilet paper. And that's what I did. I went out and I had a whole kind of stock room of toilet paper and stuff like that before everything hit with COVID, because I saw the writing on the wall. And
Yep.
even now I look back at some of the stuff that I bought, you know, say in 2020, 2021, that, you know, whether it's, you know, food supplies or whatever it is, I paid a third of the price of what it is now because I saw what was
Yep.
coming. And that's how I look at precious metals right now. I think that right now is the opportune time. And what you say with silver is the new oil. I agree. It's like, yeah, it's like oil being at $10 a barrel right now. It's like, hey, folks, the oil's $10 a barrel. It could go to $100 a barrel. So anyway, well, Colin, thank you for coming on. Do you have any closing thoughts as we round this discussion out?
No, I'm glad we were able to get on. I think it's so much happening in the news. Can't wait to talk again. And yeah, if anyone's just looking to learn and get educated, call us. I think you're going to like the people you talk to. Check out our reviews. Check out our, you know, AAA rating on the Better Business Bureau, and, you know, spend time. We really pride ourselves on customer service. So, but otherwise than that, thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Numbers don't lie. The impact that Balance of Nature makes every single day is astounding. You can see the numbers for yourself at their website, balanceofnature.com. So listen to these stats concerning Balance of Nature's worldwide success. More than 1,000 success stories are reported each month. Hundreds of thousands of customers worldwide, millions of orders delivered each year, and billions, yes, billions of fruits and veggie supplements consumed by people who've decided to start living better. There's only one number missing. That's you. Do what I did and add yourself to these numbers. Start taking Balance of Nature's whole food supplements, like so many others around the world. Here's another number that should get your attention: 35%. Use my discount code Seth to get 35% off, plus free shipping and their money back guarantee. You must use my discount code Seth. So call them at 800-2468-751 and use the discount code Seth, or order online at balanceofnature.com. Use discount code Seth to get 35% off plus free shipping.